Hi, we're back for part 3 of our wonderful and interesting Bioshock Infinite talk. That's right, 3. Yeah, there's 3 videos. I'm big time now.
Yeah.
Except, not really, but that's fine. You're watching.
I think we have a problem that we can't shut up about Bioshock Infinite. It's
You know
crazy.
what? It's a problem. Oh gosh. That my phone fell. That was super stylish. Hey guys. Hey, we're back. Sorry about that.
That was amazing.
Yeah, I did that on purpose. Thank you, Albertine.
Just getting us set up.
Good.
There we go.
All right. See, I'm so excited. I'm knocking over my phone. It's a problem, as I resume what I was saying, that the internet has. There's just been an explosion of stuff. People talk about the ending, talk about what's been going on with the game, talking about everything. There's so much stuff to talk about. And I told Albertine this off camera, but like one of the most interesting and coolest things I saw was actually Cliff Blazinski. In a tweet, he had said, one of his friends had said the multiplayer in Bioshock Infinite is the conversation that's happening after the game on the internet. And that is such a great and eloquent. Oh my god, I'm an English major.
It is elegant and eloquent.
You're right, I did it. It works, it's fine. Hey, thank you, Albertine, seriously. You know, like it's a very good way of just talking about exactly what that game means to the population and it means to all of us and all, like the community. And yeah, like it's a great multiplayer is all of us engaging about it and talking about it. So that was super spot on. So yeah, again, I'm the man with no plan, Nedu Jeckham. This is awesome and amazing Albertine Watson.
Hello.
So yeah, and Albertine, again, because she's prepared, has some talk notes here. We're kind of just going to go down them, and I'm going to shoot the shit and not have any idea what I'm doing, as I often do.
So in the other 2 segments of the videos, we kind of had a path that we were going on and talking about gameplay, talking about story, talking about combat, things like that. What I have now is just a list of just little things that I noticed that I wanted to get Nedu's perspective on and also your perspective on. So I'm going to bring those up now just as they appear in my list and we'll go from there. So one of the things I found really interesting, and I actually played through, or I'm doing a second playthrough of the game again on purpose because I wanted to learn more about it, which I still haven't, was the very beginning of the game when Booker reaches the top of the lighthouse and kind of, I want to say he inputs the code, but that sounds so digital because he doesn't, digitally input any kind of code. He like knocks a bell and does something else.
The way they did it old school.
Yeah, but whenever he finishes that password, I guess, and it turns the lighthouse into a transportation device into the sky.
Into the sky.
There's kind of this whole sequence of bells and tones that take place, and you hear kind of loud like horns or something coming from the sky, and the whole sky kind of turns red and flashes off and on. And even in my second playthrough of the game so far, I haven't really found an explanation for how they managed to turn the whole sky red or where the horn sounds come from to signal that, this chair needs to be moved up so that they can launch someone in the sky. It really reminded me of Close Encounters of the Third Kind when they were signaling the alien life forms with music and kind of like panels of light. What did you feel about that, or how did you feel about that moment?
Wow, I'm gonna make myself look like a moron because honestly, like that was just so weird. I didn't really have a good impression of what that could have meant or anything like that.
Okay.
Like I was just like, at that point, I was kind of putting myself in Booker's shoes where I was kind of like, holy shit, what the hell is happening? What are these lights and why is it happening? Why is the whole sky lighting up? So yeah, like I was pretty much just like going, what the hell? I don't know what's happening here. So I enjoyed that sense of basically you're just okay, I guess I'm supposed to go to this weird place. Ring these bells, all of a sudden you hear the like, what is that? I guess I'll go in now. Like it was pretty cool. I guess my only impressions of that kind of thing were that there may or may not be certain points in certain areas in which we're able to access Columbia in the world, especially this kind of I kind of had this thought when you go into the lighthouse, the first place you're slowly making your way up, and you see that map of Columbia's flight path. So I was assuming that maybe, like, this is just me making crap up. I was just thinking, okay, well, maybe different locations have different codes, and they all have like corresponding lights if you get it right and whatever. And if and it only works if it's in the right area and stuff like that. Because Columbia moves, as we know. Granted, there different spots of Columbia are disconnected, so the chat, ideally different places could go to different areas and stuff like that. But I just figured, like, yeah, this is basically just the code to know that you're one of the people, one of the chosen people. You belong to be here. Granted, obviously that's not clearly the case because there are definitely people there that they don't feel belong. But yeah, like that. My whole impression of that was kind of like, okay, here you've made it into the Illuminati. Here's your gift, big massive lights. So yeah, sorry, I can't say I have too much of a clear thought on that kind of situation there.
No, that's fine, and I didn't have a clear thought on it at all the first time I played the game either. I also just had kind of a genuine WTF moment, like what is going on? But then yeah, in my second playthrough I was kind of thinking like, why does the entire sky for as far as the eye can see turn red? Like how are they accomplishing that? I guess I'm very guilty of really over dissecting this game, probably because I love it so much.
That's okay.
That's okay, but if any of you guys have an answer for how it is that they're able to accomplish turning the entire sky red and doing flashes of light and really, really loud horn sounds, and where that may be coming from, you should definitely share with a video response or a comment below the video so that we can learn, because we have no idea.
Yes. Okay,
so moving on to the next random thing that I was kind of wondering about in the game and actually haven't read about yet. Was there's a point in the game when the Lutece twins pop up once again.
Love those guys.
Kind of creepy at first. And they offer Elizabeth the choice between two different brooches for her choker style necklace that she was wearing. And one is a cage and one is a bird. And of course I didn't really know the significance of cages and birds at the beginning, aside from the fact that they're very hipstery and beautiful. And I chose the bird because I sort of saw Elizabeth as a bird, and, and I wanted her to be free and sing her song, as cheesy as that is. That's kind of why I chose it. And so she wears that for the rest of the game, and then a lot of the promotional imagery I've seen for the game, either on magazine covers or just full page ads, I always see Elizabeth wearing the bird brooch, which is kind of interesting. I was wondering which one you chose, and if you knew if there was any kind of change in the game or the story, or excuse me, the gameplay, if you choose the cage instead. I chose the bird for mostly the same reasons you did, and from what I actually could tell from a lot of the stuff I've read, from people I've talked to, and from podcasts I've listened to, most people actually chose the bird for similar reasons. So, yeah, see, I was actually kind of kicking myself, like, I should have chose the cage, because, she's not, I guess the bird kind of exemplifies the fact that, she's kind of free, and the cage, signifies, the life she led in the past, and then, this is my own hipster interpretations, but really, that's kind of my impression. But one thing, actually, I started to think about, as far as that choice goes, and the Lutece kind of as far as I can tell, and from what from talking to people, I feel like the Luteces oftentimes signify a lot of things that are either constants or variables, which is really interesting because that's kind of what they talk about a lot in the game. You'll notice at the beginning of the game, the whole "he doesn't row." They're like, "What? He doesn't row?" Oh, okay. You're just like, "What the hell are you talking about?" It's because Booker's gone through this loop many times, and he's never ever rowed, and that's one of the constants in this world, small as it is, that no matter what timeline you're in, no matter how many times Booker does it, he doesn't row. Yeah. And then there's the heads and tails situation where you flip the coin, right? That's so interesting.
Oh, I love that. Like, I actually burst out laughing the first time I saw it because I had no idea what's going on. It's just like she's just like I guess Robert. Lutece and then Rosalind Lutece, they had kind of, do you remember if it was heads or tails that he landed on now?
I believe it was heads.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, he has that, like, that board where it has the chalk marks of how many times you've gotten heads, or whoever's gotten heads, I didn't know.
And then he turns around and it's all full again.
Exactly. I'm like, what the, and I laughed. I'm like, that's pretty funny. And I'm also like, wait, what the hell does that mean? Like, from what I understand, apparently there's like 122 times. 122 times. It's always been heads. So
was there 122 times? Because, okay, maybe I'm terrible at math, but I, in my second playthrough, I keep talking about this, but I wanted to, investigate things I didn't the first time around, and in my second playthrough, I went and I counted all the strikes, and I counted, I totally don't remember the exact number now, I think it was between 30 and 34 times.
Oh, okay.
We have different methods of counting. I
Oh,
think.
you know what? What I got actually was from an article that my friend wrote. He hasn't quite published it
Okay.
yet. Yeah, he is awesome. I'm not saying his name because haven't asked him if I can have permission to say his name, so I'm not gonna say it. But yeah, so maybe I'm taking this secondhand, so I don't know for sure. But you know what? Essentially the main point is that no matter what, he's always gotten heads,
Right.
and that was a constant. This bird cage, I think, the bird or the cage, I think, kind of symbolizes.
We need some more coffee.
I'm tired. I think it symbolizes some of the variables. And now I don't know if there are any specific gameplay or story differences if you pick the cage, but I think it's one of those variables. Like it's just saying, okay, well, there are some things that aren't always the same. It's also exemplified when you are at the fair and you're supposed to throw the ball at that nasty and horribly immoral colored couple. You know, there's a black woman and a white dude, and you know those don't mix. I'm kidding. Not racist. God, I'm okay with those kind of things. Anyway, the point is that you could either decide to throw it at them or throw it at the asshole who's telling you to throw it at them. And you know, no matter what you choose, the same kind of thing still happens. It's a small variable, but and again, even before that, you always get number 77. Apparently, they tell you not to choose 77, but you always get it. So I think those small things, whether they're super important or not, they just kind of symbolize. Oh my God, that there are variables and there are constants, and the constants are always happening. The variables are also may make different branches, but even with some of these variables, the same thing happens as a result.
Right. Yeah, the endpoint is largely the same. You have to do something pretty wildly different to actually change the course of the story, which is kind of Elizabeth's sort of explaining to you near the end of the game. But yeah, it's you've been here many, many, many times before, whether it was in the 30s or in the hundreds. Booker has been here a lot, searching for Anna. Go ahead and say he's searching for Anna.
Yes, I guess so. Yeah.
Well, I guess he's searching for Elizabeth, but he's also searching for Anna.
Exactly. No, absolutely, yeah. Bring back the girl, wipe away the debt. What does that mean? So many different things, except to Booker himself. He doesn't realize that the debt has already been taken care of because he already brought them the girl ages ago when he gave up his daughter. Scary stuff. But I'm jumping.
That's okay.
There's a lot to explain as far as that goes. So one thing I kind of figured out a little bit earlier than I feel like I should have, and this is just because I'm a crazy person, I kind of figured out Comstock was Booker a little bit earlier than I feel like I should have.
Really?
Again, it was more just like me being, I think this is the case. Not that, oh, I'm sure it is. I was like, I kind of think this is, because I started thinking a lot about Wounded Knee and how the fact that Comstock kind of knew so much about Booker's past, and like, maybe he's seeing him through the tears. But then, especially, I started thinking, maybe they are the same person, or maybe he's Booker's father for sure, or something like that. But the second that you get to Comstock House, you walk into the room, he's all like, "It's been so long, Anna," or whatever. I'm like, he's the same guy. And I guess at that point, it's that's there's a little bit saying it after the fact, because at that point it's kind of obvious, especially when he starts smashing his head. He's like, I hate you. He's like, he's so mad at himself. Like, that was guilt. Like, I sensed that. Like, again, something so great that the actor portrayed. Like, that was his own guilt about what he had done. And I'm thinking, maybe he feels guilty because he did this to Elizabeth. And so, like, especially when he kills him, it's like, you're bleeding. And I'm all like, oh man, I'm right. I'm so smart. I'm not really that smart. I figured it out after the fact.
You are, because I was pretty oblivious, and I didn't really put two and two together about who was who until, like, kind of the very last moments of the game. That ending just, like, blew my mind. It was
right
crazy.
at the camera.
Yeah, I wish I'd figured it out beforehand, but I didn't, and I was kind of reeling. By the time the credits rolled in the game, I sat there for probably a solid 20 minutes in silence, trying to figure out what the heck just happened, and it took me a while to figure it all out. But good on you for kind of realizing that beforehand.
I have my moments occasionally of clarity, and they only apply to video games and nothing else. So I don't know. I thought that was a really cool way to show it too. Like, I mean, again, like, sometimes I predict storylines and I get really annoyed. One of my worst offenders for me is Tales of Symphonia. I love that game. Great characters. The story is shite. I said it here first. And one of the big twists is the fact that not only is Kratos, spoilers, your father, Lloyd's father, but also Mythos, who shows up near the end of the game, is obviously the main villain. Like, those kind of things were so annoying. And it's all about execution. The execution for that was just terrible, because it's like, you already know this, and not only that, but the reveal was kind of like, not only was it heavy-handed, but it was also really limp, because it's always like, I am your father, Lloyd. He's like, no, and I'm all like thinking, like, oh, how you can't, you gotta think. And then when Mythos shows up, he's like, hey, I'm Mythos. You've never seen me before. I'm a really girlish guy, and I'm really, nice. I'm like, no, you're not. You're evil. And so again, like the reveal was kind of limp and just didn't really, But in this game, even if you have any inclination, like, I'm not gonna start pretending I knew what was gonna happen. I didn't know that Anna and Elizabeth were one and the same. I didn't know that it was the daughter. My mind was also blown by the ending. So I'm not even slightly saying I had any inkling of what was happening. Because I didn't. I was shocked and surprised. But the whole Comstock is Booker, like, I guess I maybe had some inkling towards that. And even though I may have had some inkling when it actually happened, I was not disappointed because the reveal was done so well.
Right. There were clues left for the more observant of us. But the ending still managed to be very, very climactic, despite whether or not you figured out a little bit of what was going on. It was certainly extremely climactic for me.
Oh,
so, yeah, I was pretty impressed.
Cool.
So that's kind of, I'm going to cover a couple of these things more toward the end of the video. Did you have any kind of random things that you noticed in the game that you wanted to discuss, or should I just move on to the rest of my list?
I think, well, I guess there was just, I guess these ones are more gameplay related, so, just a couple things that I wasn't super, at least, crazy about. Boss fights, I don't think the game quite needed that with Lady Comstock. At least not 3 times. I didn't really. I died the first time fighting her, because I guess I was overwhelmed by all of her undead dudes, and they were shooting me, and I ran out of ammo. And Elizabeth was, not on the ball. No, it was my fault. I just sucked. But then I started just napalming them with Devil's Kiss. But as soon as she started reviving them, they died immediately. And just that fight. And having it multiple times, I don't think was the most necessary thing ever.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that. Yeah, it felt a little heavy-handed. One fight I can kind of see, but it got a little surprisingly supernatural. I guess it was kind of nice variety in gameplay, but yeah, trying to attack her in 3 separate kind of locations definitely felt a little like, why do we have to?
Yeah, it's like collect the last piece of the Triforce, or for the princess in another castle, or basically it felt like kind of fetch questing it felt like padding, so I didn't think that was too necessary. Another thing gameplay-wise that annoyed me a little bit, just because I suck at defend the point, was the very end of the game when you're fighting those waves of Vox Populi and they're trying to take down your airship, and it's like, hey, the Songbird's on your side now, and then you're kind of throwing the Songbird at things while those guys are attacking you. I lost the first time. I did it the second time, but I was very annoyed because I hate defend the point kind of stuff. But however, I did hear about a strategy where you should actually use your traps. I'm like, I've never used traps ever, and that would have been smart and helped me a lot.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how the game will let you know, as soon as you get your very first vigor, the game explains that you can also set traps with pretty much, I think, all of the vigors.
Yeah.
But there's very little in the game that really encourages you to do so.
Yeah.
Just like I noticed, the game doesn't really encourage you to use specific weapons, so it's easy to fall into kind of a trend of using favorites.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree that the endpoint where you were supposed to basically use Songbird to take down the ships kind of flying around you and also defend the core of the ship that you're currently on did kind of show a ramp in difficulty that I was surprised at. And actually, I guess when I got to that area, I didn't realize that I was supposed to be defending the core of the ship, like that core in the middle part. I thought I was just supposed to be defending it just in general, just killing as many people as I could, and I wasn't watching, or I was watching the meter for the core, but for some reason I thought it was the health meter for Songbird. I have no idea, but I was really, really confused, and I died once, unfortunately. It was the only time I died in the whole game, and I felt like a loser.
You're better than I am. I've died more than... Never lies, I died a lot.
You may have been playing on a harder difficulty.
No, I was playing on normal the first time.
Okay, well, fair enough.
I'm terrible at games, but I love them.
I'm pretty bad at them too, and it took me the second time around to realize, oh, I'm supposed to be defending the core, because when you died it said you did not.
Yeah.
So you did not defend the core, and I was surprised. I said, like, what core? And then I had to go and look, and I'm like, oh, that's why they're running to the middle, is that's what they're attacking. All this time I thought they were attacking Songbird, and he's who I was supposed to be defending, so that was a little confusingly handled, in my opinion. It would be interesting if you guys commented and let us know, did you know immediately that you were supposed to defend the core, or were you confused like us?
Yes, and also let us know how I suck at games, and I'm like, oh, you're terrible, I had no problems. Well, guess what? That's awesome, and I'm jealous of you.
No, don't comment for that. That doesn't help anybody.
You're right, it makes me sad on the inside and the outside. Yeah, so, okay, well, how about you go on to the next point you have there, and I'll...
Sure. So one just like generalized rant, I guess, was I saw a lot of people who finished the game really, really early after its release, and they ran through in, I think, 10 hours, 12 hours, I want to say, which is really, really rapid for this game. And then by the ending, sort of gave the game unfavorable reviews. Now, these weren't critics, mind you, these were just people talking about their experience with the game. And they ran through really, really fast, and then talked about how they didn't understand the game, didn't make any sense, and it was stupid. And I was kind of like, are you serious? This game is so rewarding to those who spend a lot of time with it and really investigate all the detail that they've offered to you in this universe. So I was just kind of aghast at people who tried to power play through this thing without collecting any voxophones and looking at any of the details, you know, hidden in different corners of the game. Did you notice the same thing?
Well, I didn't notice it quite as much because I guess it took me a while to finish the game because of school and stuff like that. So I was very vehemently avoiding certain internet topics, anything related to Bioshock. I kind of avoid like the plague. But you know what? That's an interesting point because I mean I have lots of respect for speedrunners and people who do speedruns and stuff like that, and I think that's awesome. But I feel like speedruns are also should be kind of saved for after you've played through the game and experienced everything. Especially with this kind of game, you're doing yourself a massive disservice by not fully experiencing things, by just running through it and not collecting the voxophones, not sitting around and enjoying the scenery, enjoying the views, listening to the, you know, just listening to the random conversations that are happening on the streets, like watching the videos. Like there's so much, just even looking at the posters for God's sakes. Like sometimes, you know, before even Booker and Elizabeth commented when we came into one iteration of the world where I see this big propaganda poster of Booker, I'm like, what? What is that that's happening? And you know, see the red the red sash is like trailing from everywhere, and I'm just like, something seems a little different. And like those kind of things that you completely miss if you just kind of run through the game. I think if you're on your first playthrough, you're doing yourself a massive disservice. Like this is the type of game that should be experienced, especially if it's your first time playing it. You should experience it, look through everything, talk about everything. Try not to, you know, just explore every nook and cranny. And if you miss things, that's okay too. You could talk, you know, just like Albertine and I having a conversation. Well, I missed this, I missed this, and she missed that, and we talk about what we missed, and it makes us want to look for it again. Yeah,
I always wonder, like, what is the benefit to speed running through a game other than to say, I finished the game in 8 hours, or I'm definitely one of those people who I spend a ridiculous amount of time looking at every little thing a game has to offer me, and I just completely immerse myself in that universe. And then on my second or sometimes third or fourth playthrough, if it's something like Portal, I'll speed run through it just to see how fast I can do it. But definitely not on the first time around, and definitely not with a game that's so heavily centered around storytelling.
Absolutely, I fully agree. I always make the comment that I hate RPG castles because there's corners everywhere. I'm talking about everything from Final Fantasy to Chrono Trigger to every single damn 16-bit RPG that I played in the past that has a castle. Because I will go everywhere, I will talk to everybody, I will look at everything, and I feel like it's terrible because I'm afraid I'll miss something and I won't be able to go back. I kind of have the same feeling with Bioshock, except I guess because this world was so much more fully realized, I actually enjoyed it. Like I you know, every time there was a small side quest, there weren't a lot of these, I don't think, but every time there was, I would make sure to at least find that before I went on to the next area. And I would make sure to take the time to go back and because like there's just so much in there, and I feel like I would be wasting just wasting a experience by not exploring it. And they put so much thought and time into these things, so I think absolutely just look for it. They put so much thought and time into these things, more so than a lot of other games do, so we might as well take our time and really, you know, appreciate what the developers did.
Right. I'm with you on that. I totally agree. And so I guess one of the last things I wanted to mention, I guess this is like a weird like product plug. It's not intended to be, but it's just I'm a huge fan of Infinite. My boyfriend is a huge fan of Infinite. A lot of people are huge fans of Infinite. So of course, as soon as the art of Bioshock Infinite official book came out, we had to acquire it right away. In Winnipeg, we got it at Galaxy Comics. It was the last one when we were there, but they're probably going to get in another shipment, I would think. So we picked that up, and I have to say it's probably one of the nicest, most beautiful art of kind of game books that I've ever had, and I'm really, really glad that I got it, and I strongly recommend that if you love the Bioshock Infinite universe, that you pick this up. Maybe it doesn't have it yet, can you tell? The book is beautiful. Actually, it has, a really nice slipcover, but then when you remove the slip dust cover thing, the actual hardcover underneath has this beautiful foil illustration of Elizabeth and Songbird kind of face to face, which is amazing. I wasn't expecting it, because these days books, because of the print industry, are sometimes made a little bit on the cheap, and so the dust cover doesn't actually really protect the cover of any kind of like beauty or value underneath, and this one totally does, and it's a complete surprise. You don't expect anything to be under there. You think it's just going to be black, and you open it up, and it's amazing. And yeah, the book overall contains all kinds of amazing developer stories and artwork that never even made it into the game, and it shows kind of what they were thinking at the beginning and how the game ended up being realized toward the end. And yeah, pretty great stuff. Strongly recommend it.
Awesome. My God, I'm crying on the inside, a little bit on the outside too, because I really want that book. I think I'm gonna buy it eventually. But yeah, hopefully, if I ever do, I actually have a bunch of art books. I'm hoping to do a video about some of the books that I have and my favorite ones and why I like them. So hopefully by that time I'll have that book and I'll add that to the list. But yeah, that's oh gosh, I really want to just own that eventually soon. Awesome. Okay. So we're getting to the end of our video. This will be the last one. So I guess there was just a couple things that I wanted to throw out there.
Sure.
I guess the very end, of course, there's two very ends. The one where basically we get to that point where there's all those Elizabeths looking at us, pretty much saying that to end the loop we have to make this one constant, which is essentially killing Booker.
Right.
She drowns him. Like I was going to make a horrible joke, but I'm not going to. Oh God, I'm a monster. Okay, you know what? We're done. Not doing the joke about.
We're not going to go there.
Yeah. But the point is that she actually decided to then Booker kind of let himself be drowned by those Elizabeths. And as that happened, those Elizabeths were all starting to disappear. Now, what does that mean to you? I just wanted to ask.
Well, when I was first experiencing it, it meant nothing and everything at the same time. I was really, really confused.
Yeah.
Maybe I just wasn't picking up the hints as well as I should have.
Confused.
But I had, for a little while at least, I actually had no idea what was going on, and I had to just sit, like I mentioned earlier, in silence after the credits, trying to figure out what it was. And it wasn't until after I'd finished playing that I kind of put the pieces together to realize that these were all Elizabeths from alternate timelines, obviously, and that the only way they could alter the timeline and everything would be wrapped up with a neat little bow was if they killed Booker. I thought that was a pretty amazing and ballsy way to end that game. They certainly could have ended it in a way that maybe led to a sequel, which I don't think or know that we're going to see. Or they could have ended it in a much less cerebral way, but they kind of put a lot of, I think, faith and trust in their audience to understand and kind of know what was going on, at least even after they finished playing.
Yeah.
And I really liked it, as confused as I was.
Oh, yeah.
I liked that they went there.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, I totally agree. I, too, was confused. Like, when I finished playing it, I think it was about 3 in the morning, I had no idea. Not only was I not in the right state to be thinking about things, but also I was already confused. So I'm like, what the fuck? And, like, it was so cool, and it's just so bizarre. Like, she's like, yeah, basically to stop this, we need to make this constant of killing you. So if you remember, like, Booker had said if he wants to take out Comstock, he's going to go back to when the bastard was born, like, when he was a baby, and smother the bastard. This was the birth of Comstock. Comstock! This is the birth of Comstock when at the baptism. So there were two variables here. It was either he gets baptized and then becomes Comstock,
yes,
or he rejects the baptism and basically gives away his daughter, and all that kind of crazy crap happens. So by making this a constant, this actually completely deletes those two timelines, and so he's gone. However, of course, there's the Easter egg ending at the end, a la Marvel movies and Inception, bam, where you are in the room and then you hear the crying or whatever. He opens the door, he's like, Anna, and then it just shuts out. So the way I kind of thought about that, again, this is after days of ruminating, that I figured it was the case that basically it's like, okay, because there's so many different variables, maybe somewhere down the road, all that crazy stuff in Rapture still happens. But maybe not, because that means this always happens. Booker will always die. Therefore, any timelines after the baptism don't happen. However, there's still timelines and worlds before the baptism. So that means Booker will actually get a chance to live out his life with his daughter.
Anna.
Yeah.
Right.
And I guess that's a sappy ending, but I think it actually kind of makes sense in this context.
Yeah, and I was really happy about that kind of final scene after the credits where you show up once again, or you wake up once again in Booker's office in New York City, and you hear... Now, did you hear crying or did you hear lullaby music? Because I only heard lullaby music, but I wonder if there was crying and I just didn't notice it.
You know what? It could have been lullaby music. Crying could have been me. I was really, really tired and still scared from the George Washington heads.
We were all weeping.
Yeah, I was totally out of it when I was finishing that game. So that, like, I kind of had to watch a video of it again afterward. But yeah, you know what? There may not have been crying. I may have made that up, internet. I'm a liar.
Crying or lullaby, nonetheless.
Yeah.
I was really happy because that kind of helped me feel like he got Anna after all, and he gets to keep his daughter, and I think without that it would have been a little distraught prospect of him not having her.
Yeah, no kidding. It was already a pretty depressing game. I don't personally need a happy ending for things like I know. And I totally get that because especially lots of this game was a lot of depressing shit happening all the time. So it's nice to have a little bit of catharsis. I think Booker's had a pretty shitty life, and yeah, he's done some shitty things. But I think it's okay for us to at least for him to at least have something. And same with Anna/Elizabeth. She's had a pretty shitty life too.
Yeah.
She deserves something. And their whole relationship through the game shows that he would be a great father figure for her. I believe he can do it, even though he killed a bunch of people. Which actually leads to another thing I really appreciate about the game, if you don't mind, segue. I should say Craigway, because Craig's my first name, but I'd be stealing that from IGN, which I would never do. Greg Miller, I love you in real life. Anyway, besides the point, I'm not. Anyway, okay, I'll dial it back a bit. Yes, one of the things that I actually really appreciate is the fact that lots of these video games, Uncharted is definitely guilty for this, where, and it's gamey, so I don't, get on about it too much, but, Nathan Drake, wonderful, happy-go-lucky, swashbuckling, crazy guy. He's, awesome. We love him. He's also a mass murderer of minorities, I should point out, at least in the first game, but that's besides the point. The point is that, he kills a lot of people. And then he looks at this camera, just smiles and nods and winks, and, and we're kind of like, okay, it's a game. We believe this. Now, games have been at least pointing this out a little bit sometimes. One of the most recent examples is, of course, Tomb Raider, how Lara, at the beginning, kills a guy, and then she's totally distraught over and stuff like that, but then goes on to kill thousands of men, just murders them right in the face, just murder, stab, kill, all that stuff. However, and there's a bit of disconnect, obviously. There's that suspension of disbelief that we have to, engage in order to appreciate the game. This game actually did a very awesome way of making that okay, that Booker's killing thousands and thousands of people, because he was directly involved in the battle in Wounded Knee, where he, along with a lot of other American agents, killed a lot of Native Americans that were barely even able to defend themselves. He has seen and engaged in intense amounts of violence against a lot of people. So that in itself, without even pointing too much direction in it, because he never directly even talks about Wounded Knee. He was there. We know he was there. And I guess Comstock also, makes stories about him being there, how much he is involved. Again, probably writing his own narrative, but that's a different topic. But he was involved in that. He's engaged in so much violence that he's very used to killing a lot of people. Yeah,
he's quite desensitized to it, and I think they handled that really well because, in many ways the game was a huge killing spree at points, but I don't feel like the design of the game allowed the player to get away with playing constantly and killing lots of things without thinking about their actions. Because Elizabeth, who has never fought in war and has never killed a bunch of dudes, except for an alternate time. Confusing anyway, but she hasn't been exposed to this. Always reminds you what you're doing and asks you how you can handle killing, and and I think that was a really good way of making the shooting not necessarily seem so needless at times, although there was a seemingly endless onslaught of dudes. But I did like the fact that the player was reminded of their actions routinely, and the fact that in battle, Booker just kind of killing dudes. Meanwhile,
Peep six and peeps.
Meanwhile, Elizabeth, you could hear her almost whimpering and ducking for cover with an extremely distraught look on her face, which was very realistic, I think, considering the fact that she's never been exposed to this before.
Absolutely. I love the fact that every time you violently murder somebody with your, in-close melee badass kills, like, you see these kind of things in, like, in Call of Duty and Killzone and Far Cry, where you just like badass in close kill. I'm like, yeah, you feel like a badass, and then you do it in this game, and she goes, ugh, or oh god, or something like that. She'll grunt or just sigh or just yelp every time you do it, and I'm just like, I feel like a monster, and you are a monster.
You are.
As am I. So yeah, I thought that was a really cool thing. Gosh, this one's getting long. So I think one last thing I wanted to talk about, just the inclusion of Rapture. Now that was cool. That was one of my favorite parts of the game. Yeah, when you just warp into Rapture and you're just like, she's like, of course I had to be here. I'm like, what does that mean? And drowns the songbird, and she's like, that's okay. Just quietly, sit down, quiet down, just die.
Very symbolic.
Oh my god, like exactly. It was like she was like, again, drowning. Drowning seems to be very important when it comes to killing people that are close to you. Songbird drowned, and then you drown Comstock, she drowns you. Like, it's just crazy, Like, it's super interesting. And, of course, the inclusion of Rapture was kind of awesome. Just going back there, I was like, holy shit. I know there's a thing about whether who Booker DeWitt may actually be, because he's able to work the bathysphere.
Right.
But that's other crazy discussion that
getting a little bit meta at that point.
Yeah, exactly. That's a little meta. Even
it is interesting.
It's super interesting. And also another meta thing is like when you see the city underwater, it's like a city underwater, ridiculous. And that was a wink and a nod moment, because I mean they were just in a city of the sky shooting people and jumping off magnetic sky hooks, which barely makes any sense. But then he says that, and you know what? Some people,
awesome.
I thought it was awesome. I laughed. Apparently, some people thought it was cheesy and pointless, but I
think that was the point of it, though. It was definitely intentionally cheesy, and a bit of fan service for people who'd experienced the Rapture universe. I don't know if you encountered anyone online saying that they were somewhat surprised that we went back to Rapture toward the end of the game, because there was nothing at any point in the Columbia universe that nodded to Rapture.
No, there was.
Yeah, and I definitely disagreed with that, because and apparently I think very few people noticed this, but there's a number of record players from the game playing music, and many of them are playing or have a record in them, and you can go up to them and say to start playing music. Those ones, you won't be able to see the label on the inside of the record. I only found 2 record players during the game that showed this, but there may have been more that I didn't see. One, I believe, was in, I believe it was in Comstock's office, I think. And then the other one was in the Lutece laboratories in the living room, beside the fireplace. And they're a little bit different than the other record players in the game. This has a payoff, I know I'm explaining a lot about this, in that there's a record inside of them, but they're not playing music, and you don't have the ability to walk up to them and say, like, start playing music. And actually, if you equip a weapon with a good sight on it, like a sniper rifle or something similar, and you look at the label in the center of the record sitting in the record player, it actually says Rapture Records.
Wow.
And so when I found that was my instantaneous clue that we were for sure going to visit Rapture again in some way, and that Rapture had definitely been visited in the Tears.
Wow.
So that was a really cool moment for me, and so that was, I think, at least one way that Columbia was definitely tied into Rapture. What were the other ways? Because I didn't personally encounter others.
Wow, you know what? Like, I didn't even I heard about that, but I didn't actually see that in my playthrough. I didn't even notice that. I think the biggest thing was actually a pretty obvious one. Like, there was if you found the voxophone, obviously. Now, I think somebody talked about, I think it's Fink, because he developed the handyman and stuff like that,
Yes.
right? He talks in the Voxophone about looking through a world and seeing the technology to do this.
See, I didn't encounter that voxophone.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Cool.
and he kind of talks about how he saw something and it was like, oh, it was really interesting. I may be able to make something like this. He was clearly influenced by Big Daddies
Yep.
into making things like Songbird and the Handyman and whatever else. Like, so that connection is definitely there. And I thought that was super awesome that they're like, oh man, he's totally talking about Rapture. He saw Rapture in a tear. So I'm like, we're going to see Rapture before this time is done. And when we did, I was not disappointed. And again, like, even though you and I both figured we'd see this place, the payoff was still absolutely incredible because the execution was fantastic. I was walking through Rapture again. I'm just like, yeah, just scroll through Rapture. Awesome. It felt really, really cool.
I agree. Out of curiosity, did you feel like the visit to Rapture lasted long enough? Would you like to have seen more, been able to explore a little bit more with Elizabeth? Or was the kind of quick, speedy pass through Rapture enough for you?
I think it was just enough. I honestly feel like at that point we were full tilt towards the end of the game. And this is exposition time.
Yeah.
Like Elizabeth, because she's existing at all times, all the time, and able to interact with these tears thanks to the the siphon tower being destroyed, she was pretty much Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen at that point. She knew everything.
Yeah.
She understood everything.
Very detached demeanor.
Exactly. So she's like, we need to go here. And that's all we needed, As even when we got up top and started wandering around, oh man, like, okay, I'm not going to get too much into it, but basically the lighthouses and seeing the multiple lighthouses, that was so awesome. That was super meta. We're just walking around and she looks at the star like, oh yeah, those are all doors. Again, reminding me of Kingdom Hearts a little bit. Weird comparison to make.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but because
Yeah.
and actually also reminds me of because the stars in the sky are different worlds in Kingdom Hearts. The stars in the sky, this are like a different doorways. There's basically an infinite number of possibilities, and as we're actively seeing that as we're walking on the boardwalks. There we go. Yes, what's a word? Boardwalks and seeing all the lighthouses. She's like, there's always a man with power, there's always a lighthouse, there's always this. Like, it was really cool, and I feel like the short excursion to Rapture was timed just perfectly. We didn't need it to be any longer. We didn't need to run around it. Hell, I'm glad we didn't fight anything in Rapture. We just kind of say, here we are, this is where we're going.
You know what? It's interesting. From that perspective, I can totally see how that brief run through Rapture was enough.
Yeah.
I'm a total Rapture fanatic.
Uh-huh.
I'm obsessed with Bioshock 1 and 2. And I always wanted more. So
okay.
even in this situation, I guess I wished that Elizabeth maybe could have seen a splicer or a Big Daddy or even a little sister. And even just to have seen a brief interaction between the two would have been really interesting.
Okay.
And I wish maybe I could have explored a little bit more.
Okay.
There was, I think, a handful of trash cans laying around and very little else. There was very little for you to actually, go in, explore, take an item, kind of thing. The trash cans were empty. So I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that, but I think that's just my own sort of bias. I think most other people that I've read about online or talked to have agreed that the brief run-through was enough for them. So I think overall that was a good choice from the designers.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, just the trash can stuff remind me of the fact how gamey the game is sometimes, and I'm the kind of moron that'll look at every single box and everything that's dropped in. Yeah, I remember playing this with my older brothers watching me. I opened a trash can and I ate a cake, and I just immediately turned around. I'm like, I just ate garbage without even having a thought about it.
A garbage cake.
Yeah, garbage cake, delicious, so healthy. It's like Final Fight.
Well, people discard a lot of important things in garbages and
Yeah.
in corners. People are throwing out money.
Exactly.
And perfectly okay food, I guess. And
Yeah. It makes me want to look in garbages all the time, but I realize that I shouldn't. Yes, and always looting the body through fights.
Particularly not in Winnipeg. Don't look in the garbages in Winnipeg. You won't find anything good in there.
I will keep that in mind.
Okay,
Thank you.
good.
All right, so again, there's so much more to talk about. Sorry, there's so much more I want to say, but Bioshock, crazy. These are 3 long videos. So yeah, I'm going to sign off there. Thank you so much for watching, and if you didn't watch, I don't know how you possibly could have gotten to this point. So thank you.
In an alternate timeline, maybe.
Way to wrap it in. That's right. Yeah. See, again, I am this dude, Neddy Jackham. Thank you for watching, and this is wonderful and amazing Albertine Watson. Thank you so much for helping me out. You are a scholar and a saint in that order. All right.
It was awesome being here. Thank you.
Wonderful. All right. Good night.